In this day and age, she will have no shortage of advisors. Kumwambia mama, hao ni wababaishaji tu, hao ni wahuni tu, wanafiki tu. They'll tell her. Na hao wengine ambao wanakuambia, wanakupa ushauri tofauti, ushauri mbadala, ni wababaishaji tu, si ni Wakenya tu. And when you are dealing with matters as live as we see in the region and in the continent, there are many opinions, and that is what we should encourage.
We should encourage
people to speak their minds on the basis of the evidence that is available to them. They should then help. And many times what people do not know is that those who come out and speak actually mean well.
But it looks like dissent is becoming a threat especially East Africa.
Is the name of the game, because the intolerance is becoming something that is taking space in East Africa. Those in political leadership do not want alternative views. But democracy, the thing we call democracy, is about competition of ideas. You put the ideas in the marketplace, and those who make the choice then decide which is the better idea. I feel pain because those who are heads of state in this region are people that are known to us. They are people who, if you look at their history, at least some of them, you can say that they had good ideas. If I look at Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and his views in the 1980s when he was in the forefront of the liberation of Uganda, his clarity and his vision could not be questioned. He took the view that people should not stay in power for too long. He took the view that he should have successors. He took the view that views should be articulated. It therefore pains some of us who are sympathetic to that history to see the level of intolerance. Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan came from a history and a legacy of a great man, Julius Kambarage Nyerere, who believed in a competition of ideas. Nyerere would attend the University of Dar es Salaam and debate with students. And it therefore pains us, those who are sympathetic to that history and that legacy, to see the level of intolerance. I do not agree with my good friend Tindi Lisu on many issues, but I don't believe that he has committed the offense known to law as treason on the basis of the evidence that is available. And I do not believe that when you are going into an election, you ban people from participating in the election. It is the electorate that should make that decision. And if the electorate is not made or given the opportunity to make that decision, then whatever outcome there is illegitimate. You know, many people don't make this distinction, that which is legal is not necessarily right. So from a legal perspective, he has gone through the process of the electoral process as prescribed under Tanzanian law. So to that extent, her presidency is legal. But is her presidency legitimate and anchored in morality as seen by the reasonable public opinion? The answer to that question is no. It is no, because when you hear voices of reason, and the voices of reason that I know and that I talk to are actually sympathetic to Tanzania. Because then Tanzania is the only country, or was the only country, where ethnicity had been killed as the basis of mobilization. Its economy is on the up. For it to happen that through an electoral period, people die, it is painful. And it is for the love of Tanzania that we see this pain. Kenya, of course, to complete the circle, is also problematic. It is in this country that Nnamdi Kanu was abducted, and I acted for Nnamdi Kanu, and we have gotten a judgment in his favor. The government has been condemned to pay 10 million and taken to Nigeria, and is in prison in Nigeria. It is in this country that Kizza Besigye was abducted. It cannot be right. If you look at international law, rendition is something that we should not allow. People should be allowed to exercise their democratic rights, even if we don't agree with them. So you see, there is a crisis. We are signatories to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. We are signatories to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and all the UN charters. Why do we create an environment where people who don't agree with us become our enemies? It is a competition of ideas, so that what is happening in this region is that fear is being used by those in political leadership as an instrument of paralyzing the population into silence.
Will the population agree to that when you look at it?
History is consistent that you can only paralyze a population for so long. The things that we see, for example, that we saw in the Arab Spring that brought down governments, what we have seen in the streets of Africa, it started in Nairobi, Kenya. It did not go the full length. We saw it in Cameroon. It did not go the full length. We saw it in Abidjan. It did not go the full length. We saw it in Dar es Salaam. It did not go the full length. It went the full length in Madagascar. It went the full length in Bangladesh. It went the full length in Nepal. Demonstration and protest is the language of the unheard. And wisdom has always required and demanded at once that you listen to people, because you are a trustee to hold public office. Why do we call people in public office honorable? It is not because of them. It is the office that we honor. Why do we call them excellencies? They are not, or may not even be excellent. Many times in Africa, they are not. But it is the institution, the offices that they hold for the sake of the nation. When they begin to think that they are demigods, they must remember there was a French Revolution. They must remember that there was the Turkish revolt. They must remember that people rose, the student protests in 1960s in Europe. They must remember that the colonialist was here and they left. And the sooner they do so, they must remember that recently Bashar al-Assad left for Moscow with a suitcase. They must remember that Rajuel in Madagascar disappeared. We do not know where they are. They must remember that Sheikh Hasina is hiding. Nobody knows where she is.
When we get to a point, and it's very interesting, you give live scenarios that we're experiencing now, but then on the other hand, you look at it, when our citizens, Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo, had been missing for 38 days, then they are released. And then on the same day, the president of Uganda confesses that we arrested them because I was told they are expert rioters, and I kept them in a fridge. Of course, yesterday we see the PS Singwei saying it was metaphorical for him to use that. But when a president confesses to arrest other citizens, yet the foreign affairs of Kenya doesn't seem like...
You know, I know both Njagi, I know Oyo. These are young men who mean well. They mean well. They feel pain for Kenya, they feel pain for humanity, they feel pain for the black man. When they went to Uganda, they were showing solidarity with one of the candidates. It is their right to do so. Of course, it is always wise to remember that when you're in a foreign country, the rules may be different. But when a national of a country is detained by a sister or brother country, it is incumbent upon that country's foreign affairs to be involved. You know, when I see the headlines of the Standard newspaper on the 13th day of November 2025 saying, we need diplomacy, you cannot contradict them. You cannot contradict them. Why do we have an embassy in Uganda? Did we see any attempt at negotiation? Did we see? We did not. It is important that we take care of our citizens wherever they are, even when they are in trouble, particularly when they are in trouble. We had surrendered to the situation. If it had happened that it is their dead bodies that were delivered, our country would just have said, Hewala.
So, is our top diplomat, CS Musalia Mudavadi, doing his job? Is he up to the task? Has he failed the country?
The cabinet secretary for the time being, Mr. Musalia Mudavadi, is somebody that I know. But I'm afraid to say that he has not discharged his functions to the best of the expectations of the people of Kenya.
What would be the limitations? Or what would be that is holding him?
The question is, what is our foreign policy as a country? We may have papers that say this is our foreign policy, but diplomacy has a history to it. If you look at history, why do countries have foreign envoys? Countries have foreign envoys as number one, as a demonstration of the good relationship with the countries in which they are credited. Countries have envoys for purpose of ensuring that their citizens in those spaces are protected. The cabinet secretary in the Kenyan arrangement is the chief diplomat. The ambassadors are appointed, of course, as the representatives of the head of state, and they're expected to protect their citizens. We want to hear them. This country has had foreign ministers who came out and articulated things on behalf of the Republic of Kenya firmly. I remember Munywa Wayaki discharging his functions firmly. I remember Robert Ouko. And whether you disagreed with them or not, they occupied those positions with dignity, and they were heard and they were respected. I'm nostalgic about those days. But today, and I know, and I am involved in a number of cases of Kenyans who are outside and are suffering outside of the Republic of Kenya, and you ask for assistance, not even an acknowledgement letter is written to you.
We've even lost citizens in Tanzania.
And nobody appears to be bothered. We have citizens in Dubai who are detained. Nobody is talking about them. We have citizens in the United States of America. Nobody is talking about them. And one therefore wonders, why do we have these individuals who are paid using taxpayers' money in those spaces? There is no shortage of Kenyans who can discharge this function. And when we speak as we do, then we are vilified and demonized. And they use the Kiswahili word, wachache wasiotosheka. How can we be satisfied when we can see that pain is being visited upon our kith and kin? We cannot be satisfied. We cannot afford that luxury. I would have thought right now, in light of what is going on in the East African region, in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, South Sudan, Somalia, and Democratic Republic of Congo and Burundi, I would have thought that an extraordinary meeting of the East African community would be summoned to discuss the crisis, because there is a crisis in the region. I would have thought that this is the time to convene such a meeting, to discuss what is happening, because the East African community is threatened We thought that we would now be moving towards integration. But listen to the rhetoric. Are we talking as people who are moving towards integration?
We've even been threatened by about the Indian Ocean access by the president of Uganda. And I don't think Kenya has said a thing.
Kenya has not said a thing. Perhaps that is wise diplomatically. I believe that what we should do as a country is to engage the president of the Republic of Uganda. And our communication should be that the ocean is for us to share. This is a common right. We have a duty, and some of us, in order to give meaning to those relationships, say that Uganda is not landlocked, Uganda is land-linked. South Sudan is not landlocked, is land-linked. Burundi is not landlocked, it is land-linked. Rwanda is not landlocked, is land-linked. In other words, the ports of Bagamoyo in Tanzania, Tanga, Mtwara, the port of Mombasa, the port of Lamu are available to them. If there are any hitches, these are things that should be handled diplomatically. And if we engage in that space and we are moving towards integration, even that kind of rhetoric becomes unnecessary. And this is why I hold the view that there are so many issues flying around in the East African region that it is necessary for the heads of states and government to do a quick meeting. And once they have done the quick meeting and have identified the issues, then the issues for determination can be cascaded to the relevant ministers, and the relevant ministers then cascade it to the bureaucrats.
Is it that we're too expectant of these leaders to do that? Because you've, of course, pointed out the election of Samia is questionable.
Yes.
When you look at it. But these same presidents, we are saying, ought to have a meeting, were the first to send their congratulations, and yet people are dying. They said nothing about it.
You know, we are also in a space of what I call hear no wrong, see no wrong, be politically correct. And in this era of political correctness, a lot of things are being swept under the carpet. But who is your friend? He or she is your friend who tells you that you have made a mistake. Because if you have a friend that does not tell you the mistakes you have made, then you don't need enemies. And that is, in my view, the space in which we find ourselves. Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan, whom I know and respect, will have it very difficult to even travel outside of Tanzania. It will not be easy because the environment is being created in which wherever she will be going, there'll be people who will be questioned. And I travel across the continent of Africa and I read the sentiments across the continent of Africa. They are not favorable. So the first thing that would have done would be to say, yes, you have an election. Perhaps we cannot take it back, but engage the opposition. Release everybody who is in detention. Because governance sometimes requires forgiveness. Release all of them. Enter into negotiations with them. Begin the process of constitution review so that Tanzanians have a conversation. Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere said it many years ago, that the moment you stop listening to the people, that is the moment you expose yourself to danger. The moment you dismiss your population as nincompoops who have nothing to offer, that is the moment you begin to lose it. The moment you begin to believe that you have a monopoly of knowledge and wisdom and that you cannot be advised, that is the moment you begin to lose it. And history is consistent. It has examples. So we must have the moral courage to speak the truth and let the chips fall where they are and where they may. And you know, when you are a speaker of the truth, you don't need to rehearse. It is liars who rehearse. Speakers of truth just speak the truth because they mean well, even when it does not appear as if they do.